Experts tell us that anxiety is something we can recover from. So if that's the case, why, when we've been trying so hard to recover, are we still anxious? I'm Tim Box, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about the 3 ideas that, when accepted as true, end up locking us into a state of anxiety. I'll also be explaining how we break free from them so we can get back on the road to recovery. Let's do it. So welcome back to my channel, or if this is your first time, I'm Tim Box. I'm a mind coach, and for the last 12 years or so, I've been working with people to help them overcome all sorts of emotional and psychological issues, and in particular, helping them get control of anxiety. Before we get started, do me a favor, hit that like button, because I'm about to give you some information that might just make life a little bit better. So nobody wants to feel anxious, and yet we all will pretty much every day. Anxiety is one of our emotional responses, and as long as we're alive and we want to remain alive, it's an emotion we'll be feeling fairly often. However, some will feel it to a much more intense level than others, and some of us might be unfortunate enough to find ourselves seemingly locked in to that high anxiety response, where we feel in a state of almost constant fight or flight. How long we remain in that state is going to have a lot to do with our understanding of our own responses. Put simply, our beliefs will either lock us in or set us free. So let's break down some of the most commonly held ideas that perpetuate our state of anxiety and lock us into those intense, high-level responses, and explain how we shift those beliefs for good. The single main reason why a period of high anxiety turns into what we might refer to as an anxiety disorder is that we've now begun to get anxious about our anxiety. In the vast majority of cases, the thing that perpetuates and prolongs high anxiety is that we've now become excessively concerned about how anxious we feel on a daily basis. That then becomes our major source of anxiety and our primary reason for feeling anxious. We're not scared of public speaking, we're worried about the likelihood of public speaking triggering our anxiety. We're not concerned about the dangers outside the front door, we're worried about whether or not being outside will cause us to have a panic attack. We're not anxious about social interaction, we're worried that someone in that social situation will notice how anxious we are. Our continued high anxiety levels are dependent on our perception that anxiety is something to be afraid of. After all, if anxiety is scary and it could strike at any time, it makes sense that we'll need to be constantly on edge and perpetually prepared for something fearful to strike. That then becomes the continued state of high anxiety we start to now recognize as the problem. Know this: as soon as we stop fearing anxiety, we stop feeling so anxious. Once we accept the way we feel as on some level normal, we stop fearing that we're broken and we stop creating an excessive anxiety response. High anxiety can feel uncomfortable to the point where it becomes distressing, and panic can feel life-threatening, but the truth is, it isn't. Anxiety is something we're all meant to feel pretty much every day. No matter how much we go through and how anxious life's challenges cause us to feel, there's nothing to fear about those feelings. They indicate that we're alive and we care about what happens to us. They're both good things. Self-castigation is an unfortunate yet common habit that many of us at some point fall into. For all the people in our life that might have criticised us or put us down, our harshest critic is usually ourselves. There are a number of reasons why this happens. Maybe we think beating ourselves up is an effective way of self-motivating and inspiring positive change. Maybe when we were young, our parents displayed the propensity to shout and berate us when we made mistakes or stepped out of line. And now we think that's the best way of correcting ourselves when we go wrong. Maybe we're just so frustrated with where we are in life and so upset that we've got caught in this anxiety loop that we think we just deserve to be shouted at. But for whatever reason we're doing it, this negative self-talk is one of the biggest perpetuators of our anxiety. It's a very simple equation. Anxiety points us towards the important and pressing issues. If we don't feel able to cope with them, then this can create a physical stress response because we now feel under threat. That's that visceral high anxiety feeling that can feel so uncomfortable. The reason we don't feel we can cope is less about how big the challenge is and more about our own self-esteem levels. If we feel good about ourselves, we'll usually have faith in our ability to rise to the challenge. If we feel bad about ourselves, then even the smallest issue can create the expectation of failure. The single biggest contributing factor to low self-esteem is negative self-talk. If If we beat ourselves up, we end up beaten down. Regardless of how badly you think you've been doing lately, do yourself the favor of not judging yourself harshly. Going through anxiety struggles doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. It means you care about what happens to you. That's no bad thing. If you can allow yourself to struggle with the things you don't think should be a struggle without being too hard on yourself for doing so, then you allow yourself to move out the other side of it. It's our self-castigation that keeps us in that space of low self-esteem and stops us doing that natural thing of making mistakes, learning, and growing. This one is so easily fixed, but it's alarming how few people actually take the steps to correct that negative self-talk. However, if you can do it, you release yourself from one of the big habits that lock us into anxiety. As soon as we get that label of anxiety disorder, we instantly have an extra thing to feel anxious about. We stop focusing on the things we were previously anxious about, and now our focus is on whether or not those things might potentially trigger our disorder. We inevitably start to regard ourselves as less capable of dealing with life's struggles and unable to do the things we used to do. We'll then often start to repeatedly and regularly self-scan for traces or signs of anxiety flaring up. All of these behaviours are things that cause anxiety. Not only that, but it's our perception that we are now the victim of an illness that discourages us from seeking any further understanding of our responses. We stop trying to fix any anxiety problem and focus on managing it and mitigating the effects of it. It becomes the constant that is now our burden through life. We might even start to reject the stories of people who got the other side of their anxiety disorder, assuming they probably didn't really have a disorder in the first place, or certainly not to the degree that I have. It's not uncommon that our subconscious even becomes invested in perpetuating the disorder through fear that getting the other side of it would mean we've simply wasted a whole period of our life feeling anxious when it turns out we didn't have to. It's strange how we can actively resist the possibility of complete change, even though it's the thing we'd most dearly love to achieve. However, I've said many times that understanding is the antidote, and getting the other side of high anxiety requires us to at some point reject the limitations the idea of an illness might put on us and understand the purpose behind our responses. We are not hardwired for panic or high anxiety. At some point we've been through something that has caused our mind to feel under threat, to the point where it's struggling to stand down from that threat response. If we describe this response as an illness, it not only invalidates our mind's efforts to keep us safe, as if there's something wrong with that, but it also encourages us to treat any feelings of anxiety as an indicator of our illness flaring up. It stops us understanding what our mind's doing by writing it off as a malfunction caused by our condition. However, if we treat our anxiety less as an illness and think of it simply as an emotion, whilst our emotions can be tricky to get under control at times, our mind's very probably accepting of the idea that it can be done. Then the journey involves listening to, working with, and seeking to understand our emotional responses, rather than simply managing the physical symptoms of our perceived illness. The simple truth is that no matter how far we feel like we're buried in the anxiety pit, we're never locked in for good. It's only our beliefs that keep us there. If we can update our thinking, we can upgrade our responses. Freeing ourselves of these 3 ideas discussed in this video will allow us to break free from the anxiety loop and get back on the road to getting back in control of anxiety. But what do you think? Do you have any other ideas that you found it beneficial to let go of on your journey? Are there things you were told about anxiety that you found unhelpful or just plain untrue? Let me know in the comments below, and if you have any questions, put them down there too, and I'll do my best to answer them. I hope this video has been of value. Please hit that thumbs up button if you like what I do, and why not subscribe to the channel for weekly mind management tips and anxiety advice. Remember, I'm also now doing a weekly live Q&A every Friday at 6 PM London time, where you can ask me your anxiety related questions. So please join me for that. Also, watch out for the members area that's coming soon, where I'll be adding video tutorials of my full system for change with extra insights and exclusive live streams. But that's it for now. I'm Tim Box, Mind Coach. Always remember to be kind to your mind, and I'll see you next time.